Thank you, Angeline. We all need really strong women in our lives, and I am so happy and honored to have Angeline by my side for, like she said, 2 decades. She is the kind of person that when I'm talking about something, if I think about it telepathically, she realizes it, and I can turn around without saying anything, and she's standing right there holding something that I have thought about, I wish that I had. Sustainability is a buzzword I'm sure that all of you have heard or have been seeing. If you haven't, I encourage you to start noticing it because it is growing by leaps and bounds. What we're seeing is today's generation is very concerned with what's going to happen to the planet, to the earth, to our resources as we continue to burn them up. Not just global warming, but in general going through natural resources so fast. And we are way behind in the US compared to the other countries that have stepped up their efforts to maintain sustainability. And what does that mean for us as florists? Because we kind of just do what we do what we have been taught to do in ways that we didn't take into consideration when those things were created, invented, what they might do to the planet. And I was talking in the back room with a couple of people, and they asked, what's the one thing one invention that has come about or has entered the industry over the last couple of decades that I'm happy to talk about? And they were talking about various types of glue adhesives that we have available now that we didn't. And what I said is, I am so happy to see designer mesh, i.e. poultry fencing, i.e. from the old days, chicken wire. Chicken wire was around for a very long time and then disappeared. No one would admit that they liked to use it. And then suddenly it showed back up, and now it's all the rage and everything. And we're going to talk about it a lot because it is one of the things that are sustainable. What is sustainability? And I put this pretty picture on here because we all love visuals in this industry, and we relate to them. We can see that it relates to the earth, and it's our society's ability to exist and develop without depleting all of the natural resources needed to live. We want to make sure that our grandchildren, great-grandchildren, can enjoy the things that we are, the natural resources that we have available, and that we don't deplete what is available. And why does it matter to me? These are the 3 topics that sustainability really you want to take into consideration. Environmental concerns, reducing our carbon footprints, reducing packaging waste, water usage. Think about how much water we use. Being the national president for AIFD, I was part of the team that had to go around to select hotels before we would be there for our symposium. And it was amazing, but we had to take into consideration that at any given point in the week that we're there for symposium, we will be dumping 500 gallons of water at one time. Because after PFDE, all of those buckets have to get emptied and cleaned and returned, and all of that get dumped at one time. And in many places, some of the hotels, we had blocked the drainage system, clogged the ability for the hotel to use their water sources because they weren't prepared for things like that. So we have to be concerned about how much water we're using. And traveling around when I'm helping people with their processing efforts, it's amazing how many times I will look and they'll be filling a bucket up 10, 12, 3/4 of the way full to put in a bunch of flowers when that really only needs about 2 or 3 inches of water. So think about that when you're processing. Reduce the amount of water, use only what you need, and try to recycle that if at all possible. I know that we use a lot of chemicals and additives to the water, so we might not want to use it to water the plants, but we certainly could use it to water the lawn or to water things outside. Recycle as much as you can when it comes to water. And reduce damage to the environment by all of these things that we do. Socially responsible practices, employee retention and engagement. Today's generation cares about how we treat them. I am old, and the way I was raised, you give 150% to your employer, you do what you're asked to do, you don't question the practices. I had never heard anything about work-life balance until about 10 years ago, because it didn't matter to us if our work and life were balanced. We did our job to the best of our ability. Today, it matters. Today's generation wants to enjoy their life, and I think those of us that are seeing that are starting to think, especially since COVID, you know what, that's not such a bad idea to spend more time at home. I'm changing my career right now to get part of my life back, to get family time and enjoy things more, rather than just working 60, 70 hours a week. So we're starting to see that thought process is spreading into the other generations. I'm glad that there are some of those things creeping in, and we want to make sure that we look at the other things. And then with economic cooperation, compliance and proper governance really helps regulating things like energy usage and lighting and proper insulation, things like that. You can reach out to your local government to help with that. Economic benefits, and I'm going to make this PowerPoint available because I don't want to spend all my time just reading what you guys can easily read, but I think it's important. So I hope that you will reach out to Rod and Cindy and ask for a copy of it, but we will make it available so that you can ask for it, get it, and go through it at your leisure and make sure that you look at the opportunities that we have. We could be a leader in sustainability. Our industry has the resources, the needs, and the manpower to lead the rest of the businesses behind us. Wouldn't that be a novel idea? Because the floral industry is not one that usually leads. We usually follow. Whatever's happening, then we follow what's going on. So in this instance, with sustainability, we want to be a leader. What are some of the things that Gen Z is looking at? Increase their search for things at the last minute by 10 times. Today's generation does not plan. What's happening today, I was listening, because I listened to a lot of talk radio, and one of the stars that was talking about there, she said, I don't know where I'm going to be this afternoon. Somebody will take me there. Somebody knows what I need to do. And a lot of today's generation thinks like that. They live in the moment. That's part of that work-life balance. We never lived in the moment. Angelin will tell you, I am not just AAF and AIFD. I am OCD and ADHD and all the other initials. All at one time. I drive her crazy with some of that. So I plan out everything. I know where I'm going to be already sometimes in 2026, because that's the way my life flows, is planning ahead of time. Today's generation does not. They check at the last minute, which means when we're advertising, we need to keep that in our minds. If we're doing something that relates to sustainability, it is our responsibility to share that with everyone. We have to toot our own horn. We want to make sure that we're telling them that we are reducing the amount of water that we're using. We're reducing single-use plastics, because it's important to them. And although we're not going to see a major change until 2029, you know what? It's 2024. If we don't get on this now, 2029 will be here before you know it. And we will again be the industry that is following what everyone else is doing, because we didn't bother to step up. One of the other things they do is they increase their trending ideas by 50%. So more than half the amount of time that we spend, today's generation and Gen X, which is that next buying group, and that's why it's important. Right now, the millennials are still the largest buying group, but Gen X is creeping up on them very quickly. And when you get remember, millennials are split into two groups. When you get the younger millennials combined with Gen X, they're going to take over the economic power within the next 3 to 4 years. So that's why it's important to us right now. And they're 1/3 more likely to have women and men looking for gifts for their boyfriend. And I know that we've had some challenge in embracing that, but embracing alternative lifestyles is part of what we have to do today to open up our market. We're selling to 5 different generations, and there's a lot of alternative in that with different economic status, with different religious beliefs and upbringings and backgrounds, and we have to embrace all of that, because don't you want to sell to all 5 generations? If you're focusing on 1, you're missing 4. Focusing on 2, you're missing 3, so on and so forth. I need to sell to all 5 generations because I think everybody knows me. I like fancy shoes, and those are expensive. So somebody has to pay for that. We want to make sure that we're embracing. These are just trends, and the reason I wanted to put this in here is to show how we're starting with those 5 generations to taper out. Look how close they are all together in their trending and social posting. We still see 25 to 34 the largest group, but not by much. We're soon, my generation, the baby boomers and older, are unfortunately dying off. We're retiring. We're getting out of the industry. We don't have the buying power anymore. We also don't have the economic strength because we lost a lot of it. In different challenges with the market, it has been crazy the last 10 years. And a lot of my generation has had to step back into the marketplace because they had to with everything that they lost, and being very frugal if we want to even think about retiring. One of the things that's driving the shift in patterns for sustainability is that today's generation does, or Gen X, does think about brands. They like brands, and there's been this wishy-washy over the last 10 years or so, and right now we're seeing it because of economics. Because everything is so expensive. When you go to the grocery store, it costs you so much more. You're not buying that brand name product, you're getting the store brand, you're giving them an opportunity, and those brands are growing. And you know what? A lot of times, that brand is the same product with just a different label. I've been to China. I've done development. And it is amazing how you can be in one production plant and they'll be developing 6 or 8 different brands with exactly the same product. Same thing with clothing, same thing with everything we do. So shifting to some of those brands is what we're seeing occurring, but Gen X does like the branding and trust. If they can trust you, they're gonna buy from you. That's why you have to connect and you have to engage with them. You have to make sure that you're staying on top of it. These are the priorities in that shifting. They are environmentally concerned, and it's here to stay, but the volatility sometimes push behaviors background, and that's what we're seeing right now with economics. Because things are so expensive, we're dropping the brands and picking up the less expensive, more economical things in the grocery store. We're eating out at restaurants less and less now, and we're cooking at home. We're making a lot of those shifts because we have to economically. We're worried about inflation and high prices, but we're less likely to factor in sustainability when we are concerned with those economics. So when prices are high, we don't care as much about the earth. What works for my pocketbook may not be what's sustainable. So we start to shift. The reason I'm sharing this information is if you don't think about this in your advertising, your marketing, and the way you engage, you're dropping several different groups of those 5 different buying generations. Delivering sustainability at price points that consumers desire. That means looking at ways that we can be sustainable and it be affordable. One of the things we were talking about in the back, and you'll see, because I'm on stage and we get some beautiful product, you guys were very generous, and the vendors that provided things were so generous. Don't forget to say thank you to them. Reach out to them, not just while you're here. Really, here doesn't matter. When you go home, You reach out to those vendors by email, give them a call is even better. I know that a lot of today's generation is like, what do you mean? Call them. If I can't talk to them like this, I can't talk to them. This is okay, but this is even better. That personal phone call to say thank you for supporting my state association. I am the past president for Florida State. We're one of the top 3, and like you heard on stage last night, it's down to a handful of state associations. As a presenter, we're having to find other sources of income because there are no state shows, there are no wholesale shows like there used to be. So we don't have the opportunity for that to be able to share with you, which means that you have to find it here as well. And you can go down that rabbit hole. You're looking at one thing in the morning, and then suddenly 2 hours have gone by. Especially if you get on Instagram. Oh my God. Instagram is just like that big black hole in the sky. It will suck you in and pull you right out of your life. Talk about work-life balance. Instagram is not in that. TikTok right behind it, but who knows what is going to happen with TikTok. Looking at being able to provide the things that are sustainable and other options for foam. I'm not saying not to use foam because I 100% believe that it is vital to our industry, especially for beginners, to talk about placement and proper insertion and how to develop that style and utilize the elements and principles of design. Foam helps that. When you start using other elements that we're going to talk about and see up here, those are in addition to. I want to make sure that that is perfectly clear because I don't want Syndicate Sales or Smithers Oasis calling me up and saying, Jackie Lacey, you told them not to use foam. I am not saying that at all. I'm saying that look at ways to use techniques that are available if you choose to learn them. And when we go online and promote something, and I just did we were talking about it yesterday, a simple little how-to that I did spur of the moment. Angelin just happened to capture it while I was talking about it. We didn't give it a second thought, didn't really worry about the audio or what we were doing. It has almost 1 million views and over 600,000 shares and likes. Something that I take for granted. I just knew how to do and did it, but a lot of people that are getting into our industry do not have that background. So if you look at how to do something and how to create that as an alternative and practice it, then it does not take as long. I have to bite my tongue sometimes when someone says, well, I love the way that looks, but it just takes entirely too long. It took me too long the first time as well. But now I can turn 5 pieces of lily grass into a rose in just a few minutes. And I can do those on Monday morning over the course of 30 minutes and have them set up for use all the rest of the week. It is practicing the technique, learning it, and then getting proficient at it. That's what makes it affordable. So don't give me that, I can't afford to do that. That's just like you saying you can't sell something, because if you in your mind decide you can't sell it, I agree with you, you cannot. But again, I like fancy shoes and I have to sell everything, the entire stem in some way. So you have to think about those techniques and learn them. Foam is a single-use plastic. It is not. Many other options can be recycled, repurposed, and reused. And foam will break down now because it has been redeveloped. You have to look at no foam, K-N-O-W. No, go on Smithers Oasis page. This is where I pulled this right off of their website. And it will tell you all the myths about foam. Because we see all of these on that top line. You can jump on a thread and people are going down that rabbit hole about how bad foam is for our world. Not knowing any of the things on the bottom and only talking about the things on the top line. So no foam. Get to know how to use it properly. In our class yesterday, our hands-on class, we taught everyone how to use every single piece of foam. So there was no waste. It is either decorative or mechanical. As long as you learn how to do it, you can do it. Ocean Pouch is another thing that's available on the market. It is 100% biodegradable. It is great for event work, not for everyday work. For event work, it comes in that little black pouch that you can see right here. It swells up just like you can want to stabilize things in there. It's made by shredded coconut fiber. It will absorb the moisture, feed it to the floral product short term, but they're still working on the formula to make something for every day. But it is available on the market from Europe. It's already been available in Europe for a very long time. And then we put this up here so that if you do want information or a copy of the PowerPoint, rather than waiting for to get it from Rod, I will make it available to them. But if you scan this QR code, it will take you right to a form where you can fill out, I want the PowerPoint, and we'll send it direct to you. So I know that was a lot of information in a short amount of time, but we got a little zealous, Angela and I in the back, and I have a whole lot of things to talk about. So I wanted to jump forward on looking some of the techniques. This is one of the techniques that I love to use and in learning more and more on how to do it, to develop something with not being able to use foam in a clear container. This entire design is stabilized with pieces of birch branch that are bound to the edge and then secured in the center. And it's a mechanic that will allow you to stabilize the stems of everything and make it deliverable. And then as a decorative item, because anything that's going to be sustainable has to be recycled, repurposed, or reused, this is the line that you would put in a weed eater. So it is very secure. It is very manipulative. I love the colors. You can get it in orange and grays and this green and a chartreuse green. I love doing monochromatic design, and adding that little bit in there means that I can pull that back from a party and I can reuse it time and time and time again. It doesn't disintegrate because I'm not putting it in my weed eater. I'm just using it as decor, and it's all stabilized on the edge of the container just by creating the little pieces of birch branch to go on the edge and then the longer pieces in the center. So it's a technique that is available so that you can cut down on the amount of foam that you use. Because a lot of times you're trimming the birch branches that you're using in other things, so you've got to use every bit of that. You paid for it. That's where this idea came from.
Are you essentially making almost like a tape grid in there with your birch branches?
Birch branch and bind wire. So I think this one has 5 in there, so it's 5 of these that are on the edge and then bound right in the center, so it goes around like this, and then the stems just go through it and supports it very well. You can bring that back after a party, and again, you can use it time and time again. Another thing that's on the market is TerraBrick, and I know when this first came out several years ago, everyone looked at it and they were like, well, it's just dirt. And it's not just dirt. This is the way that you would receive it. It's from Smithers Oasis. It was initially created for seedlings, to put the seeds in so you can saturate the whole thing. It will deteriorate over time, so it's like moss. So what we did in this design here, because when you take the bricks out, I don't want to make too big a mess up here, they'll be all ready to kill me. So it comes in a little brick like this. It's great to put down in like a 5x5 glass square to create something that's more vegetative, that looks very natural. Stabilized for a party, but again, this is something that it is amazing how quickly it absorbs all the moisture. You have to keep feeding it water. But it's for doing something that's clean and different, like we have in this design here. Angelin created this one to sort of look like I've gone out to the garden and picked some of my varieties to add in there. Yes?
Does it fall apart like that?
When you crumble it, it doesn't. It stays in this brick, and then once you wet it, it gets really dark and it looks just like dirt. So what we did is that we took the pieces just like this around it so that it looks like it is nothing but dirt, but there's actually 4 of these bricks down in there stabilizing. And I also found that once you wet it, I like to pre-insert, take a branch or something the size of what you're going to put in it, like the tulips, and I poke the hole and then slip the tulips down in it because it is a little bit dense, and because tulips are mostly water in the stem, they break very easily. So some of these things you want to pre-insert or create an indentation in the mechanic so that you can put the products in there. It does absorb a lot of water, comes in 4 bricks to the package like that, and I want to say that there's 3 of those boxes in a case. It's going to depend on where you're purchasing it, what the cost is, but you can check it out on Smithers Oasis online. They also have something called Terrafoam, not Terrafoam, Fiberfoam. Fiberfoam, if you're familiar with agri-wool from the UK, it looks like cotton, like a cotton brick, breaks apart very easily like that, also very dense, will absorb the moisture and feed it to the floral product. But I also find with that, because of it being so dense, you want to pre-insert. So just take a hyacinth stick or something like that and poke the hole right where you're going to put the stem of things that are a bit more flexible. But your rose stems, branches, things like that slip into it very easily. Those are all biodegradable, 100%, very big in other countries. They're just starting to catch on here. One of the other things that was sustainability that we see that is a little bit of a controversy is wooden containers sustainable or more sustainable than glass? Some people feel one way, some the other, because it is a resource that is readily available. Then everyone feels that wood containers are sustainable. They can be repurposed, recycled, and reused. They can be turned into other things. They can be used to create fuel. If it gets to a point where they can't be used again, they can be burned, and that creates fuel, so they are sustainable. But some people feel like because we have to use chemicals to color them, that starts breaking down that sustainability. Same thing with glass. Yes, glass is recyclable and can be reused, but it takes a lot of energy to create the glass. So it's kind of one of these things. But I love the organic look of wood and wood boxes, and I was sharing with everyone in the class, when someone gives me a container, I'm not going to use it like this because everyone can. I'm going to, first thing I do is I destroy it. I'm going to beat it on the table and break it so that I know what it will do. I know what it looks like on the inside, how easily it breaks, how well it holds up. Can this be wet? What happens when I wet it? I go through all of those things because I need to know, as a retailer, I am a retail florist. I will always be a retail florist, whether I'm up here or whether I'm behind the table at a flower shop somewhere. I'm a retail florist. I'm going to look for something different. And I created this one using kabari. If you're familiar with kabari, it's stems that are wedged in between the edge of each side to hold things in place. It's a mechanical technique that you can use, and you're going to see it a lot in just a minute, but I'm using it to hold this product in the container. You can see it right across there. It's just a stem that would have gone in the wastebasket and be thrown away, now is a mechanic. So I'm making more money, I'm increasing my profit margin because I'm finding another way to use that. Same thing with staying natural. Now, this would be something that I would do for a party. I'm not saying that you're going to send this out to anywhere, although you could, because it could easily be taken like this and put down in a container to absorb the water and then put right back in place so that it stays fresh, but it looks different. It looks more upscale. It's something that you're not going to be able to get down the street at the big box. And we are constantly competing with the big box, right? I have to be nice and not say the brands, but we know who I'm talking about because you can buy flowers there for Valentine's Day. Bunches, trashy flowers sitting out in the aisle because they've had no attention, no refrigeration. They don't care. It's just an added plus, is the way the big box looks at it. I look at flowers as a career. This is something that I do. I do not play with flowers. Somebody was talking about how many times a customer come in the door and go, it must be incredible to play with flowers all day. If I played with flowers, I couldn't be up here. I couldn't have all of that alphabet soup behind my name. I don't play. I work. I study. I research. But we do not get the credit as being professionals. We are called hobbyists, floral freaks sometimes, floral people, but this is my choice of career, and I have had an incredible career. When they were reading those things from stage last night, I was like, about halfway through, it's like, wait a minute, that kind of sounds like my bio. So I was a little bit surprised, but it also was like, oh, I hate it when people just read down through that because I'm exhausted just when they get through reading the page. How did I accomplish all of that? This was an unplanned design that we did in the back, but a lot of times those are some of my favorite, and I love the way that the Scabiosa pod helps pull the wood into the cheerful, bright yellow color. I love yellow. And this is all done in Kabari as well. There are two pieces that go straight across the center of this. There's no foam in here. It's just water and Kabari. And this is going to hold up a lot longer because it's in a water source, not in foam. But with the Kabari, the stems wedged down in between the two pieces. And all of these are going to be made available and be put out later on after the program. So you can pick it up and look in there. It's two pieces of reed that are wedged in the center, and all the stems are stuck in between those two pieces, just as if we had put it in foam. But I love that yellow, bright, colorful look. But because we are in springtime, we can't forget the tulips, but I love a plethora of tulips because it just looks like spring. It just looks cheerful. And then using that bright orange, yellow, and purple together is a great way to mix the colors. But I love the way that this is just keeping them gathered, clustered together. It makes the color stronger, it makes the shape stronger. And then as they start to intermingle, because tulips will continue to grow, remember, up to 4 inches during the night, looking for the warm spot, looking for the sunshine. So that's going to change over time, and that's okay, because as that one changes, it just adds that much more fun to the tulips. And then I like structured pieces, and we're still able to do structured pieces without foam by using that designer mesh or poultry fencing or chicken wire, whichever you're comfortable with. I know it as chicken wire, again, because I've known it for 40 years as chicken wire. So it's just formed in there, and all of the pieces are held right in place, just as though we might be doing it in foam. Again, it's going to hold up a little bit better because it's in that water source, and you can still get as creative as you want to when you start putting things together. And then with this piece, rather than using the Kabari, it's just a little piece of, we used grapevine wreaths for our hands-on. This was a piece left over, just wadded up in there as a mechanic to insert the flowers as well. Again, you have to use everything that you get because you pay for every stem, every piece of it. So find ways that might make it a bit more sustainable. And then looking at let's bring out the other wood section. How can we take the wood boxes to the next level? By getting a little bit, these, please. Sorry, I'm changing it on them. She's gonna scream at me later. I'm used to it. Yes?
What were your mechanics of the tulip arrangement?
The tulip arrangement is also that poultry fencing, and just inserted into the pieces that are in there. These all come with liners.
Okay.
So you have a liner that's in there that will, thank you, that will keep it from leaking in there, because they are not watertight, of course. But a lot of the, like these pieces, Derek had little succulents that he had in his program. So he had like 30 or 40 of these little clay pots that he brought over there. And so I thought, that's perfect, because I like using yarn and incorporating other colors, changing the use of it. You can also, if you're just going to use the liner, take yarn around like this and use that as a mechanic. So that holds your stems in. It adds color, it changes the look of the wood box, and it gives you an opportunity to be sustainable, because now you're not having to use another resource to hold things in place. But in repurposing, and I do want to share too, that we did this program in Great Lakes, and then we shipped the pieces that you're seeing up here from Great Lakes here, because that's more sustainable. So that way the association didn't have to buy 2 sets of it. Accent Decor didn't have to donate 2 sets. We recycled, repurposed, and reused what we had from one program to create another program. Because that's, how can I get up here and talk about sustainability if I'm not practicing myself? But to create something that's a little bit different and unique, these are all created with pieces that were left over from something else that I did. So the orchids came off of the stems from there. It was the bottom portions that I couldn't utilize for that one to be able to incorporate. The little pots were from Derek's program. The entire set was from Great Lakes that we used there. And then the water tubes we used in both places as well. You can be sustainable if you put your mind to it. You just have to think about what you're doing and how can I incorporate it. But this would make a great buffet piece or entryway piece, or you could line these down a table, because we're seeing a lot of family style tables, or knights tables they're calling them, where you've only got about 8 inches in the center of the table to decorate. So coming up with something that's different and unusual to fit into that space can sometimes challenge us, but know that the opportunity's there, just as long as you think about how you're going to do it and how can you add that into what you're thinking about. And again, don't always think that it has to be done just the way that it is intended. What happens when I turn it this way, or what happens when I turn it up or stand it up? Because as you can see, it takes it to a whole different look. And then you would want to jump on after you've created this. You want to share that information with today's generation by going on and posting about it and talking about what you have created and how you put that together and how it works into your sustainability. Keeping things simple when it comes to foam alternatives and sustainable mechanics just gives us an opportunity to rethink what we're doing. And this is plexiglass that is just put into the container, wind around, and then used as a mechanic to hold everything in place. It's not so much, are you going to see earth-shattering designs up here? That's not what this program is about. This program is about the mechanics and looking at the alternatives for the mechanics. And how can I add something into that particular container that's a little bit different and unique, and still have something that we can offer that is in that affordability price, because the container's a little bit more expensive. These are great containers from Accent Decor. I love the wood because look at the way it changes the whole look of the design. Without it, and just adding that little bit of finish in there changes the entire look of the container. It has 3 roses, 4 pieces of stock, and a couple of pieces of foliage that's in there. So think about what you're putting in, and I love using the wire that I can just take right back out and add it into something else. This is also the kabari. I took 1 piece of curly willow and I cut the tip off. I put it down in the bottom part of the container, and then the stiff part of the stick I cut off first and wedged it in to hold all of it in place. That way this can all be inserted in to the container to change the look, and it doesn't require a ton of product to go in there to make a big statement. It's not about being super filled with flowers, and a lot of people will say, well, my customer just won't go for that. You're wrong. If you train them, if you show them what the alternatives are and the look, because I don't care where you are in the country, even up here in Wisconsin, you're out by the lake or on the reservation, you're going to have people that gravitate towards this design. But they don't know how to ask for it. They don't know they like it until they see it. What's it going to cost you to do something? Talk about it on social and train them that it's another option. It's going to cost you 4 stems of flowers. It's worth it to see. And if that doesn't go, then maybe this style will, or the next style will. Look at what might be available. Using the stems from the heliconia as the kabari, and again, this is what kabari is. That's just 2 stems that are wedged in there. A few pieces of reed that I chopped to hold everything else in place.
I have a question. What type of vocabulary would you use to a customer to kind of invite them into liking newer styles?
A lot of people like to use the word high style. I think that scares people because they're not quite sure what is high style. Modern and contemporary, people get those two confused. Modern design is of the moment, and that's what I tend to use more than contemporary, because a lot of people think contemporary, 1 or 2 roses broken apart and glued to, they're just like, they don't understand it. So I think if you stay modern, then it's of the moment, it's of what's popular right now, then you can capture a lot more people that way, because they can relate to modern as something that's going on. And again, it's like, hey, I just want to talk to everybody this morning, and we're going to talk about what modern design is. I've got some samples here that are really popular in our area, and I want you to think about what will work in your space. It's just education.
Do you find to record yourself is more inviting than typing it in the caption?
Yes, to all of what you just said.
Okay.
I think it's important for 2 different generations. With my generation and traditionalists, we read. We like pretty pictures, but we're not always going to click on play. We're going to see what you've got written down there. With your generation, you like to see it in 20 seconds or less. So you want the video. So create that fast, quick video and then outline what you're going to write down there and do both. That way you're hitting all the generations and explaining to them what the possibilities and opportunities are. This is not, not like over the top design, but it's clean. I like making things taller. When I send anything to the funeral home, I do it horizontal like this, because then that funeral director can't put any crap in front of my beautiful flowers. Rather than doing something like this, do it like this, and they have to push everything else away. Because when someone orders sympathy flowers, they get to the funeral home, and I am so sorry for your loss, and the very next thing on their mind is, where are my flowers? And they better be able to see them from across the room. I want to capture that attention. And when you do something horizontal like this, where people have always done vertical, everyone that walks in there is going to go over there and look at it. That doesn't mean it has to be wild, crazy design like this. It can be curly willow or gladiolas or whatever. These are just some of Anne's product that she had left over that we stole after she turned her head. No, she said I could steal it from her. But I like doing things tall because it's perceived value. It must be this expensive. And then it's magnolia foliage. Yeah, it's magnolia foliage that's just layered in there. I love using magnolia because you get both that. No, it's what, like 2 branches, 3 branches? Yeah, take it down and show them. Because with magnolia, and I'm from the South, so we have lots of magnolia. just dripping with all that Spanish moss and everything around. It is just gorgeous. But I love that beautiful velvet brown texture that's on the backside, and then that glossy green on the front, because it goes with so many. And right now we're seeing a lot of, yesterday was gray. Gray took over the place of khaki or camel or taupe for those of us that were older. And gray has been the lead for 10 years. Now gray is going back to camel, khaki, and taupe. We're seeing the gold tones come in because it's a new generation that didn't see it. So moving towards that brown tones is a great way to incorporate magnolia. But because you don't have a lot of magnolia trees here, doing something like that is probably going to be more acceptable because of the color. You're looking at the color and it's different and it's unusual, but it's super hardy. You can put that foliage in the cooler and keep it in the cooler for weeks. It will hold up. And then taking a couple of those tropical leaves, and I'll have Angelin bring this one around as well, because everyone that came over loved this. It is just piercing. It is taking a skewer through an accordion folded leaf, and then I'm using the sections of the leaf to support the stems. So it's just accordion onto the skewer. The skewer is wedged in to hold it in place, and then you insert the pieces down into the leaf to hold it in place. So it's another mechanic that gives you texture and it gives you color and allows you to design in a little different way. And then I love, unfortunately I couldn't be at a program a couple of weeks ago because of being ill, and I had to call Derek Woodruff, who's doing a program with me, and I said, I'm not going to be there. I need you to take over and do the whole program. And I'm a planner, had everything, PowerPoint, page after page of inspiration, and I sent it to him, and he called me back, and he said, I ain't doing this. Jackie, Lacey, you're crazy. Because I had on there, I love using mechanics like this, because this is a beautiful topiary, or not topiary, armature, and the curly willow armature then can be used either as a bouquet like this, or it could be up in a tall section with some other curly willow down in a stein or something like that, so that you get it way up over the table, or doing it as a bouquet like this. It's just about the armature. It's another way for us to mechanically be able to incorporate product in a container and give it a little different look and a water source. Not over the top design or over the edge. Will you bring those up for me? Bind wire, right? Now you start with the handle. You're creating the handle. Thank you, Don. Creating the handle, and then wrap it back into itself and binding it in a few points, so that the armature is completely by itself. You could take all the product out and do it something. You can do it more traditional if you wanted to. You can make it more contemporary or modern if you wanted to. It's just about the technique more than anything else. And then with this piece was all things that we had left over. And we sent a lot of bamboo, which I'm going to look at here in just a second. But this was a piece because remember, with bamboo is a natural water tube. Wherever there is a section of the bamboo, it seals itself off. So the entire tube in there will then hold water. So this is holding water for the plant, so that whatever you put in there, so I don't have to use a glass tube or a plastic tube. I can use the bamboo. This was the branches that I cut off of one of the pieces that we have right over here. And then, so really the only product we had to add in, and why does everything have to go in there the way that we naturally attend it, with it being in the other way? Because I like bringing that color all the way down here, and these are products that will hold up for a couple of days with no water source. And it's just wedged onto the front of the container, and all of the heliconia is in there just supporting in between those two pieces of kabari that are on the inside. I want to talk about real quickly the birch branches, because that's another mechanic that I just lined the interior of the cube with the birch branches, and everything is supported in there with that. But I know that we don't like using a lot of ribbon. Angela was like, I can't believe you're using ribbon. But thank you, Reliant Ribbon, for supplying this beautiful ribbon down there. That brown, I love that because it's that brown, gray, and white. Super popular right now because white on white is really trending, but then changing a little bit with the natural bit of the seeded eucalyptus and the scabiosa pods. I love scabiosa pods. I know that some people do not, but I think it adds so much by getting some of that up and making it look larger than it has to be. Going back to the topiary, the armature, this is another curly willow armature on this bouquet that Angela created in the whites, but then adding in a little bit of that copper aluminum wire, or aluminium, depending on how you want to say it, to just match the color that's of the curly willow, but take it to that next level. Because that's kind of what this is all about. What techniques can we utilize to incorporate something that's a little bit different and unusual that you're not going to see everywhere? And this could go in any kind of container, but this set is from Accent Decor. Thank you, Accent Decor, for supplying that. I love the edge is unfinished. It's that sort of wabi-sabi, perfectly imperfect, because it doesn't have that precise edge. It's wavy. Even the sides looked like when it was created, it wasn't quite taken where it needed to. But you can do very traditional design in something that's a more modern container as well. These are all bound together because someone comes in the shop and they're like, well, I love that, but I would rather put that in a different container. You can easily take it out and change it for another container. Or if they love the container, but they want something that's not all white, then you can trade that out as well. Because you want to make pieces that are adaptable when it comes to being sustainable. And the thing I love about this particular collection is that it also comes in this incredible pearlized iridescent look. So no matter where you see it, it looks like it's a different color. So you could easily change these out if they like one and not the other, because you made it more flexible. So you're not stuck. Give yourselves options as you begin to create designs. Match the container or not, because we can see that white, all white, looks beautiful in that container as well. So you've got the ability to be a bit more flexible. And why does everything have to be that little roundy moundy? You know, I know that that's gotten us a long ways. Well, I love me some roundy moundy, don't get me wrong. But I also love grass. Who doesn't like grass, right? Yeah. And it's acceptable in the world now. Using bare grass or lily grass to give you a bigger look, because look what happens with this design when we take all of this bare grass away. It just falls down. Whereas letting that fall out, and again, not being perfectly perfect, but taking your design to the left or to the right rather than straight up or around is another option, because I think you could easily deliver this to a grandmother and she would still be okay with it. But today's generation would also like it because it's different. And my generation are going to like it because of the colors. So I'm hitting those marks with every generation and still being sustainable. This piece is done in the poultry fencing, the mesh that's down inside there, so that you can see all of the options. And then don't forget, I call this a little bathroom buddy. Yeah. You know, something you put on the sink. When we go to weddings, women love to have you go in the women's restroom, and I've been in there setting up, I'm just saying. You go in there and there's tissue and there's chapstick, and you go in there and they talk under the stalls to each other and they come out with a best friend. Men go in the washroom, we're not allowed to even recognize there's another man in that room. It's like we have to put our blinders on. Don't talk to me. Don't look at me. It's two completely different things, but women love to also have flowers in there. And these were pieces that were taken off, but then adding in those little lily grass roses, and Angela, you want to carry this one around? That are woven in there with just the orchids that were taken off the piece. Shows your technique, your talent, what you know, and that you're ahead of the mark. The other thing with looking for ways, tatami, sorry, I want to talk about one other thing. Tatami, that's this piece here. And tatami is a technique of creating anything that is like a mat. Like you could put it, Asians do this a lot because I love me as some Asian techniques because they study and are such clean workers when they're designing by creating things like this. They can take bare grass and create a plane and fly away. Far and above Western design, they can use things like this. But with the tatami, see how that just takes that to a whole new level by adding that in there. And this was time consuming just because of all the pieces. But again, we've used it 2 or 3 different ways. So if you're using it in an event, you can continue to use it again and again. And don't forget that those pieces that you cut off of the bottom of these stems can be incorporated. Am I going to make it? Yeah. So that you take that color all the way up as well. Now we're taking it right to the top, or like I said, I love to do horizontal and taking that same thing on a horizontal plane and stretching the design out rather than being tall or vertical. I think people would look at both of these and think that they were equally the same price range, so that you're getting that perceived value with it being more. And it's okay to leave mechanics exposed, especially in today's generation. They like seeing how things were put together. So as long as it's clean and it fits what's being used, you can take it to the next level. That one piece right there. I know I'm a little bit over, but I don't think they're going to bring the hook out here yet and snatch me off stage. I talked about using the bamboo, and these were pieces that I cut. I happened to be in Great Lakes, and luckily my friend Sandy Schreck was there, and she always travels with what we call her magic suitcase. And if you ask for something, she's like, oh, wait a minute, I've got that in my suitcase. Oh, wait a minute, I've got that in my suitcase. I was like, I wish I had a saw. Oh, wait a minute, she had it in her suitcase. So I sawed these in 2. It was great big pieces of bamboo, and it is tough to saw bamboo with a little hand saw, but luckily I didn't work out that morning, so I got my workout just trying to cut the pieces. But one piece split, and everyone's like, oh, this split. I was like, no, don't worry about it. I cut a little bit more out of it and just wedged it right onto the container. Because now, again, that's a natural tube. I have water in here in the tube to feed the floral product that's here that will allow me to get it up and off the container. It doesn't have to be, don't give me that blah, blah, blah. It needs to be 1.5 times the height of the container from the edge, taking in everything into consideration. Thank you, I appreciate that. That got me where I am today. I'm gonna do what I want to do. Because I like reaching for the stars. Get it up off the table as much as you possibly can. And then with the shampoo ginger, I love that look and the fragrance. How can you take that to the next edge? And I like using stands like this, and these were a couple of other pieces that you can.
You want us to go ahead?
Yeah, I didn't want to show that side, but it's okay. Yeah, take it right to the center. Yeah. using the pieces that were broken off, as you can see when it goes down into the container, how it magnifies and makes it look larger, makes it look like it's a solid piece of that bamboo. So you could easily, for a party, do one simple piece. It doesn't have to be over the top. But I like going over the top. And why does it have to be used in the way that it was developed with a little plate to sit on top there? So these pieces give us an opportunity. And it's going back to that same mechanic of the chicken tube, chicken wire that's just folded into a pillow, that's suspended right in the center of both of these, and then all of the foliage is just inserted in there, so that it creates a dynamic look. Because if someone came in to an event and saw this, they're going to want to see how it's put together. They're going to want to look at the ways that you incorporated everything. So take the color down to the table and utilize it so that you can spread it out and make it as large as you want to, and utilizing every piece that you've got to create that look. Nothing is a bigger compliment to me than having someone up in here trying to see how something's put together. I love that. It means that I've invoked something in them. And then with this last piece, we took the two pieces, and instead of using the big tall piece, I might have to adjust, just gonna slide right up on top. That's 3 pieces of curly willow. And we took the chicken tube, the poultry fencing, and just wrapped it around the curly willow. It's secured in a couple of places, but remember, I'm from the South, and it's not done till it's overdone. So you have to think about what can we do to take that to the next level. Don't be afraid to experiment and find ways to use every piece of the floral products that you're provided, because we are so lucky to have all of this beauty to work with. And you want to make a statement, extend the look as much as you possibly can, and think about flowers in a little different way. I have to say thank you to Wisconsin Upper Michigan Floral Association for allowing me to be here. Thank you, BloomNet, for sponsoring myself and Angeline. Angeline, can you please come out? This young lady I could not be more proud of, and couldn't do what I do without her assistance. She keeps me organized and moving forward, and I'm so proud to see her start to step into my shoes, because I've got some hard shoes to fill. So you'll be seeing more of her and a little bit less of me, but I'll still be around in the industry doing some new things I'm super excited about, so stay tuned. Thank you again for spending some time with me this morning. Be around for a few minutes. I think they're going to start to move things, get ready for the next program. But thank you, Wisconsin Upper Michigan Floral Association, BloomNet. Thank you, Angeline.